the city of Oakland will give yet another presentation to the county of Alameda, similar to the July 20th one, but with an express purpose of a vote. The July 20th meeting wasn't to have a vote at the end. This has, as they say, all the cards on the table. But you would say, okay, why? Why is it so important to Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf to have Alameda County's seal of approval on the project? Why is it that after so many years of trying to theoretically maneuver away from a place where the city needed the county to finance a project, particularly a event project that impacted sports, why is it now, after all of that, after all that talk, after all that effort, after trying to engineer sale of the city's side of the Coliseum to the athletics, and why is it that the county pursued a similar route and sold their side to the athletics? Why, after all that, are we here? Well, it has nothing to do exactly with that. The reason why we are here is because the way the legislation was written that the athletics want to use and the city, at least some want to use, SB 293 Skinner, which was signed into law on 11th of October 2019, is written in such a way that in order to use the County of Alameda's portion of tax increment financing, they have to get the county's permission. Now you would say, why? Well, this is the reason. Because if you are the county and I come along as the city and I say, okay, county, you know that for every property tax dollar that's paid, we get 30% of it, you get 20% of it, actually 15% of it. BART gets a percentage, AC Transit gets a percentage, the school district gets a substantial percentage, as does EB Mud for the flood control district, right? So those are the places where the common dollar property tax is dispersed. And the places that it's dispersed to are called taxing agencies. The city of Oakland's a taxing agency. The county of Alameda is a taxing agency. BART's a taxing agency. EB Mud's a taxing agency. The school district is a taxing agency. And AC Transit is a taxing agency. They are taxing agencies. But of all the taxing agencies, the legislation was written such that you have to go to the county if and only if you intend to use the county's portion of the total tax increment. That's why. And that is the stated reason the mayor says that she believes she needs the county. Now, this opens up a lot of questions that we have talked about before and I have raised before. Foremost among them, why couldn't this have been done when SB 293 Skinner was first signed into law? The answer to that question, my friend, is still blowing in the wind. The answer really is blowing in the wind because the city is not want to tell you that they didn't focus on implementing SB 293 Skinner once it was passed, even though the city council later that same year officially recognized by vote the existence of SB 293 Skinner to establish a tax increment financing zone around Howard Terminal for the use for the construction of a new ballpark for the athletics and to use money from that tax increment, well, basically to help different projects around the city. Yeah, you heard it correctly. That's the way it was supposed to have been done. The jumping off point I'm taking here is not really that, but it's to tell the truth. The city's current project manager, Molly Mayburn, wasn't brought on until 2019. She had no experience in redevelopment at all, no experience in tax increment financing, really didn't know what it was, let alone how to calculate it. So she had to be brought up to speed. The city's current city administrator, Ed Riskin, who I've known for years, was brought in 2019. And prior to their arrival, people who would have known how to do this left. Pat Cashman, for example, was gone. He wasn't asked to put together the entire timeline of events and paperwork that was to be done. Should have been. And they certainly didn't ask me. There was then, and really still is now, an intellectual vacuum, a lack of understanding of how to do tax increment financing, of what's supposed to be done in order to make it work. And so because of that, we've had this very, very, very slow process toward implementation. Now, the question you might ask is, do we really need the county of Alameda? Even though the mayor says we do, the fact is we don't. The athletics know it, I know it, and if you don't know it after my talk now, you probably will never get it, but you're going to find out that they don't. The reason why the county of Alameda isn't needed is because the impact of not being able to use the county's share of the tax increment from the 55-acre Howard Terminal area is simply because you can replace that by saying, all right, I know I'm not going to get 20% of that right up front. So if I want to achieve a targeted tax increment revenue result of $1,600,000,000 by the 45th year, and I know that to get there, I got to build $2 billion worth of property, then if I'm going to lose the county's 15%, I have to add 15% to my assessed value for the base year, for the first year that the redevelopment area is active or goes online. Wherein what that means is basically this: the property that's in that area, Howard Terminal, you can just base it to Howard Terminal, I'll explain why in a second, goes from paying the county and then the money dispersed to the taxing agencies to it going to the fiscal agent that collects the money, ostensibly to retire a bond issue, although there are a certain listing of consultants that have been hired by the city to put out this idea that they're not going to use tax increment financing. If you read their legislation, that's what it points to. Like Center Urban's September 24th paper, about roughly 8 pages, which I devoured. Awful document. But the point I'm making is tax increment financing is a formulaic construct. It's very simple. The bigger the value you have of assessed value, the bigger your tax increment revenue is going to be. I repeat, the bigger your assessed value, the base year, and then as you go forward in years, the bigger that value is, the bigger the number is. You can achieve that number size 2 ways. You can either have more structures at the base year of value, or you can have a bigger map. The athletics chose a bigger map, which raises some hackles for me, because my question is, and it's been a constant question, do you intend to pay property tax? You want a privately financed stadium? Awesome. But the question is, if you have that, you need to cough up that just north of 1% of the value of the property every year. It's just 1%. That drives the tax increment. I have not seen any calculation, save for the ones that I have created, that added the ballpark as part of the tax increment. So even though Kaval said to me, yes, we intend to pay our property taxes once, it has not been numerically proven either by the Athletics or the city of Oakland. I repeat, the Oakland Athletics have not proven that they intend to pay property tax to drive the tax increment from the ballpark. And the reason why I stress that is because, sure, there is a schedule of anticipated buildings, structures, that from a standpoint of total value, we're said will equal at some point $12 billion, with the majority of that being just north of $7 billion. Okay, fine. Folks, here's the problem. The Athletics do not have financing for those structures. And as Dave Kaval said to me in the interviews we've had, plural, that they would love to have the Athletics a master developer partner, kind of like what the Raiders were going to have in the first iteration of the deal team to put together what is now called Allegiant Stadium. Who was that? Sheldon Adelson / Las Vegas Sands, Craig Cavalier representing Majestic Development Company, and the Raiders. The late Mr. Adelson, rest in peace, came along, basically told Majestic take a hike, said that they would take over and pay for any cost overruns. They would write the check. That's what Mr. Adelson said that he would do. Not this company, himself. So how that turned out is another long story. I don't want to get too off the track of what I'm talking about here, but I use that as an example of what a development partner does, because the original development partner, Majestic, was slated to put in roughly about $200 million. But my point is that without the development partner, without the financing for those projects in the future, you don't know if they're actually going to get done. You don't know that. So it's fool's gold, I assert, to base your expected tax revenue, tax increment financing revenue, on buildings you don't know are going to be there. And yet that's what's implied with what the consultant puts out. But then the consultant doubles down and doesn't give us a tax increment financing estimate, and the city and county don't ask for one, okay? They don't ask for one. This is the most ridiculous, the most terrible example regarding tax increment financing and its use in a development project I have ever seen. And that is why I've used terms towards city staff I've never used in my entire life, and I'm 59 years old. I've never called anyone incompetent until this year. But I meant it. We have, as many of you know, a crisis in government service delivery that is, all you have to do is step outside the door and see it. Sometimes you don't have to do that. All you have to do is watch television or video. It's all around you. We can't just say, okay, well, that's the way it is. We have to demand a better, more competent government staff to achieve, in Oakland's case, the will and the initiative to complete big projects. And Oakland has not done that in a long, long time. Not since 1998. With respect to the Warriors, no, I'm not talking about the Port of Oakland. It's a different cultural animal. The Port has a lot of base hits and home runs regarding containers and cranes, and you get the idea. The Port knows how to build. But the city of Oakland has not proven in quite some time that it knows how to build on the level of competence that the Port does, and the gap has grown wider. The gap has grown wider. Arguably, The Port of Oakland should be really building the ballpark, not the city. But the mayor doesn't want it that way, and could have had it that way. Okay, could have had it that way, and still could. All right. David says, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the city is a hidden agenda and what they really want. They do. It is a hidden agenda, but it's a political agenda. It's not a. When you say hidden agenda, it's a way of justifying what they're trying to do. My point is that the city's agenda has nothing to do, if you take a look at it face value, with actually building something for the A's and keeping them here. Unless the city wants to say, okay, well, A's, you have to pay for X, and we're not going to give you public money. Why? And I say why, not because of any love for public money, but because the deal points and the talk have been for quite some time. Hey, look, we're going to use tax increment financing so that you can use it to, when I say improve the infrastructure, let me be blunt and let me be specific. Raise the water, the land table over there to attack the sea level rise problem. And of course, deal with the toxic issue and the land prep work that has to be done to get that site buildable for a Major League Baseball ballpark and large-scale event center, which is what Howard Terminal Ballpark will be if indeed it is built. If indeed it is built. Okay? Which gets to another problem, all right? The other problem is simply this. The city itself does not understand, unlike Las Vegas, for example, how to look at the project. Oakland District 3 Councilmember Carol Fife was making cracks early on about not having time for baseball. Well, that proves she doesn't understand at all what Howard Terminal is about. Howard Terminal is a large-scale event center. You can hold everything from weddings to conventions to soccer matches to rugby world championships to Rolling Stones concerts or any group you can think of. There. All right? There are over 200 sports events that the city of Oakland could go after if it had a sports commission. The sports commission's job is to either identify those events or produce them on its own to fill dates in facilities like Howard Terminal. You are looking at the person, the only person in Oakland's entire history to ever actually establish a sports commission. I built from scratch the Oakland, and I got federal government approval in 4 months for nonprofit status, the Oakland Alameda County Sports Commission, within which we had the Super Bowl 39 bidding committee. And I did that without the city's help. And I did it in the face of the city attorney who told me I would need 2 years to get the approval. That's how Oakland is. It's always telling you what you can't do. It's a cultural problem because what I'm talking about with you was 1999 to 2000. Oakland, culturally, the city has not changed. And it should alarm everybody that you can put people in those chairs, and it doesn't matter who the person is, you get the same result. And the people who are capable enough to give you something better than the result get chased out. I should know. I should know. This is a matter of caring about the city. But more often than not, we have people who fill those positions. And I hope they get mad enough to do something about it and really actually figure out ways to make this work. But right now, I'm not seeing it at all. And it's not that this is a dead case all of a sudden. I'll tell you why I say all of a sudden, because there have been a couple of very big developments that could severely delay the Athletics' quest for a stadium in Las Vegas. All right? Donna says, do you think the city has an ego mentality? There's nothing wrong with ego. If you don't, let me tell you something. If you don't have ego, I think it's the reverse actually. If you don't have ego, you shouldn't be in the development business. You have to believe that you're the baddest blankety blank out there, that you're the smartest, that you're the most capable, that you can get it done. And if you don't believe that, why should anyone else believe you? All right? So show me people who want to criticize somebody's ego or say that, anything that diminishes them or say that they're outgoing, and I'll show you a person that cannot get this job done. Get out. Now. You're wasting our time. But I digress, okay? So the bottom line is that, and the reason why I said that the city has suddenly a wide opening is there's something called Brightview. And Brightline, would allow or construct a high-speed rail line from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Now, they purchased 110 acres at Las Vegas Boulevard and I believe Young Street, not Tropicana. But basically where it's located is where the Raiders parking lot is located, just off I-15 down I-15 from Allegiant Stadium. What a wonderful place to have a ballpark and a high-speed rail station. There was talk of that possibility. But don't you think that possibility would have been greatly accelerated if Fortress Investments, the investment organization working with Brightline, were able to secure its $2.4 billion private activity bond last year? Of course. Well, guess what? In December, it got rejected. And then it got rejected again this year. Why? Because both in California and in Nevada, private activity bond issue requests were shifted to favor affordable housing and not high-speed rail. You hear that? That's why. The need for affordable housing in the Western United States in particular, and in Las Vegas especially, is now so acute that projects that normally would have received the go-ahead to get private activity bond funding aren't getting them unless they're affordable housing. That's the big difference. And am I saying that will impact the Athletics' ability to get financing for their stadium in Las Vegas? The answer is a big fat yes. So think about that when they come out with their pretty pictures and everything, which they're going to need to convince investors to push forward. They're basically starting at ground zero in Las Vegas should the Athletics and Major League Baseball choose to move in that direction. What has been done because of that is automatically given the city of Oakland an advantage. It is not quite, but all but erased, but not quite, all but erased the 2-year disadvantage we have because we started late regarding tax increment financing with respect to SB 293 Skinner. This is an amazing development, folks. This is an amazing development. Oh, you want to add a little cherry on that cake? Here's some more. The infrastructure bill is still not passed, right? You're going to tell me that as much as I thought it would have been really a terrible thing to do and the vice president should have screamed, you can't do that to Oakland. You're going to tell me that had Nevada gotten hold of and still could get a hold of part of that infrastructure money, it wouldn't be used for a stadium for the Athletics? Of course. Now, get this straight. I'm not saying A's to Las Vegas is dead. I'm simply saying that the city looks like a more attractive option because it has something this close to being implemented that Las Vegas and Nevada don't have. And that is a substantial means to use public funding to form the basis, the foundation, literally, upon which to build Howard Terminal. That's not in Nevada. And here's another problem. And again, it points to affordable housing. You have to convince a Democratic-led run legislature, used to not be the case, that you need public funding from them for this project. And while I would say that the possibility of getting it in Nevada is still pretty good, it's nowhere near the climate it was before the Raiders got it. The Raiders have, for a large part, crowded out the ability to get more, because the question is, okay, if you establish another stadium hotel tax, that's going to be another 1% tax, and it should be a 1% tax if you want the bond issue to pay for itself, which would then, kick up hotel room rates. And the question would have to be asked, would the Athletics be such a draw that would be worth such an adjustment? And I think that's worthy of debate. I can see both sides to that argument with respect to what Las Vegas might do. But I can say the governor of the governor of Nevada's heavily involved in this. He wants this to happen. And Steve Sisolak, the same person who, as Clark County Commissioner, spearheaded the Raiders move, or helped to spearhead the Raiders move, working with Sheldon Adelson and his people and the Raiders to come from Oakland to Las Vegas. So all this is not out of the realm of possibility. But my point is, given the fact that it's going to take longer to line up private financing and the private activity bonds, should they choose to go in that direction, and that's what the high-speed rail people, who it was said were going to partner with the Athletics, wanted to do. They got to wait until 2022. Late. Okay? That's where they are. They expected to have all that buttoned up, $2.4 billion by now. No. If they had that buttoned up, I think the Athletics would have been closer to saying, hey, sayonara, Oakland. And Major League Baseball there, too. Major League Baseball is not in the financial position to alone pay for Howard Terminal. Major League, why? I'll give you a hint. COVID-19, the pandemic. We're not out of this at all, okay? We are not out of this, okay? But again, I stress to you, the good news is that because of how hard it is to get financing today, and that'll clear up compared to 2019. And when I say how hard, I don't mean like it's impossible. No. I'm not saying that. Again, it's the need for affordable housing that's crowding this out. So when I say how hard, it's hard for everybody. No, actually, in general, the market is great. But I'm specifically talking about high-speed rail and, baseball stadiums. Okay? Now, if I were advising Las Vegas people, I would say in that case, they should consider something they didn't use in the case of the Raiders, and that's tax increment financing. There was a provision in the original Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Act for just such a use. But at the last minute, they took it out, which I thought then, and I still say now, was completely stupid. You know who agreed with me? Dan Frantrelli. Yeah, the guy who's now the Raiders president. So, and he did so at the Raiders sponsor party that I was at in 2019 when I was there for CES. Anyway, tax increment financing would allow the ability to raise, I think, realistically, and I'm hesitating for a reason I'll explain in a second. I would say 500 to 800 million. Okay, but maybe a little less. But the reason why I stress it that way is because what I don't know and I need to research is the ability for the county or the state, in this case, because they're under, they're not a home rule state. Home rule means the cities have control over their taxes. Dillon's law puts the state in charge, the state of Nevada in charge of taxes and how they're levied. The counties have to follow suit. Okay. But what I don't know is, can the county artificially inflate the value of the property each year? New York can do it. So let's say if we're going to do a tax income financing for the Bills Stadium, right? Well, guess what? We can inflate up to 6% a year. It's 2% in California and Oakland parlance. What does that mean? You're saying, Zinni, what does that mean? It means that I can say, hey, my property is going to be worth 6% more. The county can say that and just make that happen. It's not market. The county can set it that way in New York. In California, County of Alameda sets it to 2%. It's a 4% difference. What does that mean? It means that I can get more tax increment financing money faster over a period of years in, say, New York. I don't know that we can do that in Las Vegas, in Nevada. That's the big, okay? All right? I'll tell you, if Nevada were like New York, with that, and the Athletics managed to convince Clark County and the state to use tax increment financing, they could set themselves up a nice package. Comparatively nice with respect to Howard Terminal. I'm not saying they'll get that because, again, the politics in Nevada spells two words: affordable housing. Put affordable housing in as part of the ballpark. Hey, now you're talking. All right, now you're talking. Will the renderings we see from the Athletics include something like that? No, I don't think so. They should. If they do, I'd be shocked. Say, hey, because you would say, well, they did it for Howard Terminal, so why not? In other words, they put some implication they're going to build hotel housing and hotels and all that. Why not in the Vegas example? Let's see. Let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. But what I'm explaining to you right now is because of the dire need for affordable housing in Nevada, it's harder to get approval. Well, hard to get approval to use private activity bond issue for a rail, let alone a ballpark. Affordable housing, you can do it because they've been shifting money that way. All right. So coming back to the 26th meeting and what needs to be buttoned up, well, you know what's really stupid about this meeting, I find, and I'm sorry to say it, but I'm just getting to that point in my life where I'm calling balls and strikes, folks. Where is, other than, my spreadsheet and then what I'm going to produce before the meeting, probably by tomorrow, where is the tax increment financing revenue estimate from the city's consultants? I have seen, I even called Center Urban, got no call back, no message, They probably thought I was going to quote them on something. No. I don't always roll that way. No. But my point is, this is not being done right. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who say, Zinni wants to work or you're damn right I do. The hell is wrong with you? If I'm the person that has the most talent and experience, of course I should be involved in the project. Are you stupid or something? Are you stupid or something? Jeez. I mean, the level of stupidity that's exacted by people on this is just so incredibly high. Uh, it just is mind-boggling. Pay no attention to that. Push through. Because when I was coming out of grad school and going to work in the city of Oakland, we had task forces, and the task forces were basically ways of gathering together everybody that we knew had expertise. Didn't matter if you worked for the city or not. We needed your brains. But Libby's not doing it that way. And this is Libby's thing. Just like if there's a murder in Oakland, she's not giving the speech regarding, hey, this is what we need to do and we're going to do to curb it. She sends her black police chief out to do it. Sorry, Libby, but it is. Keisha Lance Bottoms here, well, not here really, but several many miles away in Atlanta, is the mayor. That situation comes up, it's her face, not the Atlanta chief of police. But when it comes to the athletics, it's the mayor acting like the point person. This is the first time in Oakland's history that the mayor has consistently acted like the point person for a large-scale public project. Never happened before. Never. In the past, for example, let's take the Warriors project when we talked about having a stadium, a new arena for them in the Coliseum or possibly downtown. It was Fred Blackwell, and Gene Kwan was the mayor, and yeah, we had strong mayor then too. Dan Lindheim for Ron Dellums, all right? Oh, and famously, most famously, under Jerry Brown, our first strong mayor, if you will, from, by structure rather than a council manager form of government, we had my current friend and mentor was then too, and my boss, Oakland city manager turned city administrator Robert Baum. This is the first time that you cannot name to me, other than the mayor, who the point person for the project is. You say it's Molly Mabern as project manager? Okay, but she doesn't appear before the press. She's not the person doing the press conferences. She's not the person that is the go-to. It's the mayor. The mayor talks. She's working off talking points, which makes it, I hate to say it, problematic because there are points where I know Libby is saying something completely incorrect. Yet she's working from a script, all right? And she's working from a script, okay? And so where she gets off script or gets off track because of the script is, for example, and I hated to do this, but she made me do it. She says, hey, when I asked her about events and if the athletics had given her a list of events or anybody in the city staff a list of events that could be had at the stadium, like, for example, rugby world championships, the rugby sevens were at what is now called Oracle Park. I know because I was pressed there. It was a lot of fun. That was 2018. Could bid for it for Oakland, okay? If the city had a sports commission, it would be trying to line those events up right now. Doesn't matter if they're like 3 years out or 4 years removed, the city would be doing it right freaking now. You hear what I'm saying? And the A's would be insisting on it. Got that, Dave? The A's would be insisting on it, excuse me. This is not coordinated. There's so much wrong with this project that it hurts. But with all that, it doesn't mean the project should be stopped. No, Oakland needs this project. Indeed, the world needs Howard Terminal to be built in the middle of a pandemic. At a time when people who once enjoyed working at stadiums as popcorn sellers and ushers are in some cases homeless and missing the ability to work a job like that and still make ends meet. You know, you piece together a World Series over here, piece together a car show over there, you piece together a women's bodybuilding contest over here, and voila, you got your money for the month. All right? That's how they used to do it when the Coliseum had events swirling around. And I'm proud to say the Coliseum's still getting events, international events, like the Mexican, the Beatles of Mexico, as I think they were called, that came and put something like 50 or 60,000 people in the stadium. That was amazing. Wow! Congratulations. Props to Nicole Strange, who's the stadium manager at the Coliseum on behalf of SMG. Not bad. AEG, excuse me. Not bad. So we've got to do this. There's an old-fashioned thing called civic pride, yeah, but it's also for civic know-how, because if we do it, it will mean we have a blueprint to do more, different kinds of projects, and we won't be afraid next time. We'll have experience, know-how, and we'll look at our possibilities differently. Too often, Oakland looks at its ability to use government to make change from the bleacher seat of no. It's too hard, it's too tough, it's too expensive, it's just too. We've got to get out of that, because people today are counting on us to do it. And I say this again, I don't care if you're a council member, I don't care if you're an aide to an elected official, I don't care if you're mayor's aide, I don't care if you're the mayor, I don't care who you are. If you can't do it, get out, because you're wasting the taxpayers' dime. We need you. And that goes particularly for council members who want to say, well, this is Libby's thing. It's your thing too. I told that to Lauren Taylor some time ago. That's why I just thought, man, he ain't running for mayor. No, he's not ready. Because if we were like Mark Ridley Thomas in Los Angeles, he'd have taken some ownership for Howard Turner a long time ago. And then, if your constituents were concerned about, the Athletics not having a ballpark, right? He would have said, well, I've got this group going after the NFL right over here, and the WNBA right over here, and I'm going to work with Rebecca Kaplan, and we have this plan, and we're going to use AB 424 to raise money to get billions to business and make it happen, and do the sea level rise. And so we'll be able to use tax increment financing to bring much needed revenue to our area, which is mostly Black and people of color, right? But he didn't do that, okay? He told me, you have to write about my agenda. He didn't know what's going on enough to what his agenda is, other than his ego. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with having ego if the ego is used to better people's lives. But when the ego is used to better your own life as a public official, that's where I jump off. I'm like, you know what, forget it. Okay? I'm just being blunt because I'm tired of this. My first job out of grad school was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency. That was September 17th, 1987. You know who I work for? Jeff Chu and Austin Penny. Reach down to grab me was a guy named Ezra Rapport. Yeah, the same guy who was the architect of the Raiders deal. Okay? It was Ezra who taught me how to do tax increment financing. I'll never forget the day. We were going to clear out over where Zone Technologies is located. It was actually empty property. EB Mud used to dump its pipes there. It was pretty awful, crossing the Coliseum. Ezra wanted to put a big box retail there. Had an idea. gave me my first project on the job, binder this thick, and no roadmap, except that he wanted me to tell him, find the property around somewhere around the city where to put those pipes. I cold called a real estate guy. We got in his Jeep. We went on a tour. We found 6 different sites, got them priced, acreage, utility cost, the whole 9 yards, right? If you've ever done that sort of thing before. Wrote the report. And as I was writing a report, I saw this letter from E.B. Mudd's property manager. I forgot Joan's last name. I called her. Said, hey, I wanted to know if you had any guidance or something that I should know about. I thought she knew about the project. She says, who put you up to this? I said, Ezra Rapport. She said, fucking Ezra. Click. So I said, oh no. So I called Ezra. I said, hey, you know what? E.B. Mudd's property manager has a problem here. She says, why did you call her? He said, why did you call her? I said, well, you didn't tell me not to. I didn't know this was a secret project. Ezra was known for secret projects. Okay. True story. So he came over and he said, energetic intern. And so the second project was, actually, the second project was this, and I'll get to the third. The second project was that E.B. Mudd wanted to take control of part of Emeryville land that was actually Oakland Redevelopment Agency, and they wanted to put a wet weather storage facility there. However, a number of people, including a developer, wanted to put big box retail there, and an office, and a hotel. Sound familiar? So Ezra said, we're at an impasse. I need you to figure out what the economic impact would be if we built 180,000 square feet big box and 300 units hotel room, so on. So I went out and I built not only a spreadsheet, but I built the rudiments of what became called the area redevelopment economic model, because I could also figure out the tax increment, right? I did all that. Came back, rolled the thing out, and then I wrote the memo based on the model output. And that memo served as the catalyst for E.B. Mudd to back off, and for that Home Depot that you probably have been to, and the Best Buy that you've probably been to in Emeryville to be built. That was my project. So then came something called the Coliseum Redevelopment Area. 6,000 acres. I developed computer runs and models and everything else this thick. So you rehired me as a consultant. So effectively, the city of Oakland was my first consultant as an economic client, as an economic consultant. My second, the city of Emeryville under Kofi Bonner, who I just so happened to have went to Cal with, and we both graduated. He was running it. So it goes. I go back that far. Okay. It was a great time because unlike today, where the market looks at Oakland and the white money, as they would say, spends money, right? Okay. And builds, so that we have edifices that many years ago you never see in Oakland. Institutional investor money, if you were white money, would leapfrog Oakland and go into Contra Costa County. So the challenge for us was to use tax increment financing to provide incentives for developers to build in Oakland, otherwise they wouldn't be there. It was a cause. It was a calling. And I was proud to do it for what was then and still is now America's most diverse big city. But folks, I tell you this, even though we don't have that institutional investor problem like we did before, we do have a problem of disinvestment in our communities right in our own backyard, creating something described by one word: gentrification. And so, in a sense, the more things change, the more they say they're the same, right? However, there is a gigantic difference. We don't use redevelopment tax increment financing. Jerry got rid of it. And he got rid of it for just long enough so that the people who are the experts at it were gone. And as the mayor said herself, a press conference interview I had with her discussion, we don't have that expertise. Now she tries to sort of make up for it, but the comments she's made, yeah, she's my friend, but this is beyond that. This is about the city and people who are suffering. She doesn't get it, okay? And it's one thing to read talking points, but it's another thing to actually sit down, do the calculations, work with developers, figure out costs to something, build something, and everything else that goes to have something built, and then how to have that penciled out so that people who don't have a lot of money can afford to live there. The city of Oakland forgot how to do that. And now today they'll say, well, we'll just have somebody pay an impact fee. No, an impact fee is a disincentive to a developer, not an incentive. Tax increment financing provides a developer an incentive. It fills the gap so that you can lower the cost to live in a place. That's the idea. Or you can use it to buy materials and then resell them to a developer so the materials are ostensibly cheaper, right? To build housing. You can do that. There's no law against it. Okay? There's a lot we can do that we don't do. And so, yeah, running, okay, running for office and everything else it's an ego play and a chase for dollars by council members who really should give themselves a raise because they're not making enough money. But politically, you can't sell that. So what they do, they wind up trying to jump chairs. So that's why you're going to see all these council members who just got in running for mayor. It's a matter of trying to get more money for themselves rather than saying, hey, you know what? We have a full-time job here. What makes it harder to justify is you have people like Lauren running for office and talking about running for mayor while they're getting public dollars already to be council member. Council member is supposed to be a full-time job, okay? All of what I'm talking about with you impacts Howard Terminal and the project and the reason why it stalled for so long. And the reason why, because of basically the grace of God, the need for affordable housing, the city of Oakland still got an advantage on Las Vegas that it didn't have before. Because right now, again, dollars are not flowing to that high-speed rail or a new stadium. I'm talking about in the Nevada parlance. And insist that government work to make your lives better. And insist on that government work to make your cities better. And insist in the Oakland parlance that your elected officials form projects around AB 464 to get billions to business, all right? They're not doing it. You should ask why. And you should be outraged that that's the case. It can be used for Howard Terminal as well. We got to get to work. See ya.